So have you ever heard of Depressed Anonymous, Damon?
You know what? I'm so glad that you brought this up. I'm going to be really 100% honest with you about this one and very blunt. I thought this was a joke. I
Nope.
did not think it was real, not because I don't think that people are depressed. I think depression is very real, and especially for people in recovery. But I thought, depressed anonymous, what is now? There, it doesn't exist. This is
It
something that somebody
does.
made this up. And then you told me how long Depressed Anonymous has actually been out there.
Yes, yes. I actually attended several Depressed Anonymous. And first, I want to start with depression is a serious medical condition. We are not doctors. If you are
Yeah.
suffering from depression, we want you to get help. But I was in a space where a couple of people mentioned, did you ever hear about Depressed Anonymous? And I too had never heard about it. But a couple of us got together and bought the literature. And I'm going to tell you, it changed my life. That literature was amazing. And if you have a second, I'm going to read the preamble because I
Yeah,
think this
please.
is
Please do.
so. Depressed Anonymous, we believe that what we think, what we say, and what we do impacts our depression. We believe that depression can be managed by applying the principles of the 12 steps, and all are welcomed. And some people who may be suffering from depression might get angry. I once again want to tell you that I'm not saying medication, not medication. I'm very open about my journey, and I do get help with an antidepressant. It's important to seek medical attention. But what I loved about Depressed Anonymous was the fact that they took the word depression and really, really dispelled this belief that somehow we had some control over depression.
Yes, I love this. And I don't even know, after looking at this stuff, I don't even know if control's the right word. We have some participation in it,
That's a
right?
good word.
Because the thing about the word control that sometimes I start is that like, do I have control that I'm an alcoholic? Well, I have control possibly over making a decision not to drink, but
Hmm.
some of it's biological, right? And it's the same
That's
thing with
true.
depression. And I think that I am so glad that we're actually having this segment because a lot of people ignore depression
Right.
in 12-step groups specifically, and it's killed a lot of people. It really
Hmm.
has. And like you
Hmm.
said, anything that we say, guys, on this, Kristina and I are not doctors, but one thing we do know for sure, although not giving you medical advice, we can give you our observation of what we've seen. And there is so much misinformation when it comes to mental health, depression, and recovery in peer
Hmm.
support groups.
Hmm. And so, just like you said, you are powerless over alcohol, which is step one if you're in a 12-step group. The Depressed Anonymous discusses that we are powerless over depression. And I still think that people don't believe that. And especially like myself as an alcoholic, thought that that meant that there was something really wrong with me, that I was faulty, that I, had a problem, and that was something that I was choosing. And one, they have a wonderful description in the green book. You can go look at it on Depressed Anon. That's what the actual organization is, or just Google Depressed Anonymous and you will find it. The entire first section of the book gives one of the best descriptions of what depression feels like for people, and the whole idea that it's something that we can control is really dispelled, and it's something that we can turn over to a higher power to help us walk through it. And it was beautiful to take my depression and put it on the outside of me, because just like I thought being an alcoholic made me a bad person, I thought that being depressed made me a weak and bad person. And having the 12 steps to walk through it with a bunch of people that wanted to talk about it was really, really enlightening.
I have to tell you, one of the things that I found great about this that really like after I realized it's like, oh no, this is a real thing.
Hmm.
I thought, wow, this is really going to save a lot of people because I think my experiences with depression is that rarely are people not depressed when they've come in for an addiction issue, because at some point, just biologically, you're going from injecting alcohol or drugs or food or something into you, something toxic into you. And it
Hmm.
could even be people, right? It could be just you don't have any physical addiction to any substance, but you're a really bad codependent. You start to
Hmm.
come in, you go down the recovery road. what happens is you start to realize what's actually happened in your life. And that automatically kind of throws the gear into the depression gear, really, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
I've seen this time and time and time again. And there's anger, and the anger is really depression, right?
Hmm.
It's just all these feelings, and it's kind of a toxic waste dump. And people kind of put it as like, I'm depressed in a big
Yes.
kind of bubble, right? But what does
Right.
that really mean?
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying when I say taking my depression and putting it on the outside of me. It does not describe me. It is something that I'm struggling with, but it doesn't describe me. And alcohol is a depressant. I mean, I think most of the world understands that. And our body always wants to obtain homeostasis. So when we flush it with dopamine, that drug that tells us we want more, our body and our brain will actually cycle down and leave us a little more depressed than we were before we started the whole cycle. And so it's very, very normal for people to be depressed when they first start an alcohol recovery program or a drug recovery program. And then there are people like myself who who are prone to depression and have been depressed and were a depressed child because of trauma. And so actually putting it outside of me and listening to other people that felt the same way about my depression really helped me figure out what was my part, what was the footwork, what did I need to turn over to a higher power, what could I do? And it helped me no longer have morality around depression.
Yeah, I think one of the things that was highlighted is, I think it was Bill W. in the big book talks about his depression, right? In writings.
Hmm. Hmm.
And we have somebody who's really good on the history, George Schneider, who's one of
Hmm.
the contributors, Recovery and Life Strategist George, and he's an author and writes about a lot of this stuff. Is that it was so misunderstood. He knew that he had depression. I think people were more aware of depression
Hmm.
before alcoholism medically, right?
Right.
So there were people were talking about being blue and being depressed and not being able to get out of this funk. And it's interesting, like for my own personal story of this, when I first got into recovery, I went into a deep depression, right? I,
Mm.
I do not consider myself a depressed person, people that know me,
Hmm.
but I will tell you, like now, because of COVID, the lockdowns, not being able to do anything, um, I felt myself kind of get into that like kind of lethargy. Uh,
Hmm.
and
Woolly.
and here's the thing that I'm going to say about this, Christina. I found, that through the business and recovery thing, I deal with a lot of high performance people.
Right.
I find that depression is more prevalent in high performance people than anyone else. It's the go-getters, it's the people that are doing it, it's the people who are running your meeting, who are doing the deal, who have the businesses, who have the they have what you want, quote, right? They suffer from depression just as much as anyone else, more, I would say.
Well, and we talked about the other word that doesn't get described, shame. And I think there is so much shame around saying I'm depressed, especially if things look like they're going well. If things look on the outside like they should be, what do you have depressed to be? What do you have going on that you need to be depressed? I mean, that is often what we say. And I'm so glad that you brought up the mental health part, which is another reason why I wanted to bring up this literature and let people know about it because the entire world has gone under, I call it a four-step inventory
Mhm.
for the entire world during we're all taking
You're
inventories about our life.
absolutely right. You're absolutely
Yeah.
right.
And so
Does this work for me anymore? Do I really want to go back to a 9 to 5? Do I really want to work for it? Right?
yes.
All these people are asking these questions. Everybody's asking these questions.
Right. So depression could have snuck its way back in. One of the descriptions in the book that really got me was, people think it doesn't necessarily always attach itself to sadness. Sometimes it's literally just being woolly, like you have cotton around you, like there's a bubble around you, like you can't participate in life. It's like the scene in Wizard of Oz. It's black and white and it never goes to Technicolor. And they want to be happy about something. They continue to strive for something. We continue to strive for something. We want that to make us happy, and we want this to make us happy. Yet there might be trauma underneath it. There might be grief underneath it. And so admitting that we're powerless over our depression is such an amazing relief, because then we can talk about it with others that are suffering from depression. We can start to recognize it, and we can start to address it.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be really open here about this, about my feelings about depression.
Okay.
Have changed a lot because I have met people through peer support groups and friends and other people that are sober, that are doing the deal really big, that suffer from depression. And
Mm-hmm.
my feelings of just snap out of it and stuff have changed. And I'm going to
Right.
say this, I'm going to make a really bold statement. I think, and again, I don't think it's 12-step groups in general, because they're not set up, unless it's Depressed Anonymous, it's not set up to deal with depression.
True.
It's set up for people who are drinking themselves to death for the
Right.
most part, right? So
Right.
I'm a big proponent of, don't, look, in early recovery, you're going to have a lot of feelings. I don't think, and those could be interpreted as a numerous amount of mental health issues,
Sure.
right? But after it kind of evens out and you start to do the deal, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
those I found, and I'm generalizing, go away. But I think that some of the disservice that has happened in the recovery community is not acknowledging when it doesn't go away, and
Right.
telling people to get over it, that they're not working a good enough program.
So
And
true.
I've seen it kill people, Kristina. Literally, I've seen
Mm-hmm.
people who felt like, well, I have to fake it now. I can't be
Mm-hmm.
honest because I'm, quote, not sober enough.
Right.
And they kill themselves, right?
Right.
Literally kill themselves, right? And people are shocked, but yet the signs were there the whole time.
See, I had an angel in my life 23 years ago that was in the program, but also a licensed therapist. And she presented it to me like this. She said, "Not everyone has to work as hard as you do to be happy." And it had never occurred to me that other people had access to a peaceful life, and they weren't doing the same thing that I was doing. And because she shared about the different treatments around depression and anxiety, and I mean, I worked with her for 4 years, and it really changed, and I can only imagine what my life would have been like if somebody hadn't said, "Depression is not a moral issue." Depression is, for many reasons, your predisposition, you have trauma. There's a lot of reasons why we have it. And we are not doctors or medical professionals or therapists in our 12-step groups. And
And let's
it's-
be honest,
Go ahead.
Christina. Sometimes, um, 12-step communities, it's not the hotbed of mental wealth. There's a lot of people that don't have what you want, that
Right.
pretend that they do have what they want, right? Like, and so there's some not great advice, especially
Sure.
regarding depression. I mean, I've shared with you, kind of, off the screen, off the show here, some horrible things that I
Yes.
have seen in 12-step, witnessed, right? In 12-step programs, of advice that was just absolutely crazy,
Right.
right? And you're getting people in at their most vulnerable state. And a lot of times people walk into certain 12-step groups because it is kind of the last thing that they can get, and
Right.
it's free, right?
Mhm.
So the thing is, they walk in, but the help might not be as educated about what's really going on with people
Right.
as they need to be.
It's so true, it's so true, and so, when I stumbled across this, and that was during that 4 years, and I worked the program for about a year, my other programs catapulted into, more freedom, and so I just encourage everybody, if you're feeling depressed or you have a sneaking suspicion that depression is following you around. I remember feeling that way, like it was always following me around, and it was going for anxiety, that there are treatments, there are coaches, there are therapists that out there that will sit down. And I think that we have to talk about it more in the
Yes.
recovery community.
And we're going to do more shows on this, guys, and we're going to bring on actual medical experts to
Yes.
talk about what's actually going on, because I think the subset of addiction recovery / depression is
Hmm.
way bigger than we would like to admit. I think that
True.
people that suffer from depression on multiple levels of the scale are way bigger than we would like to admit. And I
Right.
don't think that we do enough in the education of that. And I'm just going to throw this out there. If you're listening to this and you're depressed, reach out and get some help.
Definitely.
Please reach out and get some help. There is light at the end of this tunnel. And, Kristina and I are thinking about you. And, we know have people, and, Kristina just shared that she reached out, got some help, and
Yes.
that it got better.
It did. It will get better. It is available to you to have a life free of it.
Well, Kristina, this has been an amazing segment.
Keep the conversation going. Join Recovered Life, a community of like-minded people who are looking to live their best recovered lives. Membership is free, and you can apply at recoveredlife.us.